It's time to free some space on your shelf. Here's a look at the brand new Trick or Treat Studios Halloween 3 Season of the Witch 1/6 scale figures of the Trick or Treaters. Trick or Treat Studios is proud to present the officially licensed Universal Studios Halloween 3 Season of the Witch 1/6 scale Trick or Treater action figure set. This amazing 3-figure set is 1/6 scale, and each figure has 30 plus points of articulation, so you can pose them for perfect display. The figure set includes Witch Trick or Treater figure in screen accurate clothing, Skeleton Trick or Treat figure in screen accurate clothing, and Pumpkin Trick or Treater figure in screen accurate clothing. 3 additional melting masks, 1 for each figure. Additional hands, 4 per figure, arrives in a beautiful collector's box with flip back window display. This Halloween season, expect your luck to run out. Before we get a closer look at the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch 1/6 scale Trick or Treater action figure set, I'd like to thank the folks over at Trick or Treat Studios that did provide this sample we could have a look at. If you guys would like to get your hands on these, they're $299.99 over on their website, or you can also go the route of 4 interest-free installments at around $27 each installment, if that's the easier route you'd like to go. Let's go ahead and measure these guys all off. Now, they're going to be about the same size to one another. They're certainly sharing the same bodies, and measuring-wise, I'm probably only going to measure one of them. So let's stick with the Pumpkin, as he's my favorite of the 3. And the trick-or-treaters in this case are about 8.5 inches in height, or they're going to be about 22.5 centimeters tall. Seeing as we already have looked at Sam and all, I did want to bring him in for comparisons. Now, while they are going to be using, yes, sure, the same bodies, Sam, though, does come across a little bit bigger. You can chalk it up really to the fact he does have the rounded head. But if you look at, like, the stem of the pumpkin, I don't know if you can actually see this or not, the figures are about the same size. It's just the fact that Sam's head is so much bigger. Another figure also we can bring in for comparisons, even though they never really share the same screen time, even though Halloween the 78 movie is playing in the bar. Here's also what the trick-or-treaters look like with the 1978 Nick Castle Michael Myers, also produced by Trick or Treat Studios. Despite being trick-or-treaters, the set surprisingly doesn't come included with any accessories that go with trick-or-treating, like bags, for example, or candies and treats that can be thrown inside. Based on the accessories, though, that they do come included with, more so just swappable hands and melted masks, I think that Trick or Treat's probably got planned an accessory set for down the road. Something I would certainly love to see, and if they really did want to also release that set with, say, a figure accessory, or like an actual figure, I think they probably could include Little Buddy Cupfer as one of those included figures, and then maybe just include like the TV and some of the also treat bags that are obviously absent here with this release. But you do get yourself hands, and now each one of the figures actually come include the exact same hands. So you come with hands like more suitable, I would imagine, for the melting masks than anything else. You can kind of have the hands up by the figures' faces. The figures also come include, while I think that this is something that's probably going to be a tease for a future accessory pack, they clearly seem to come include with hands for holding bags. Or holding something, but I'm guessing more bags than anything else. I would have thought for bags, like simply just simple plastic bags, probably could have been something that could have been packed along with the figures first. But then thinking further about that, I mean, the fact that this set is already $299 and you get 3 figures and you get 3 swappable heads and you get the hands that all go with them, I think it's probably something that they're probably going to plan to release as an accessory pack, where in fact I think including a TV would be a great accessory. And then, hey, why not? Again, as already mentioned, throw in a Buddy Cupfer to go along with that. Okay, so yeah, going back to those hands, one thing I will say to the credit of them is like they seem to be getting better and better. Hopefully you guys can see that. Better and better, I feel, at painting the plastic, especially when it comes to skin tones. When we look at the 78 Michael Myers as sort of the starting point and where we see we've come from now, I mean, like the hands, the skin tone is so much nicer on these newer releases. Now, again, like these hands can be easily swapped out. You just take, for example, let's just grab the pumpkin, for example. Let's remove the hand from existing forearm peg. and then just take the hand that you want to use and just plug it back into place. I mean, obviously this isn't a hand tutorial, but if, yeah, you wanted to have the figure displayed, for example, like his face, or serpents are going to start crawling out of his eye sockets, you could use those hands for that. But yeah, all the figures are going to come include with the exact same hand, so nothing really changes from that department. And then, of course, they all come include with their own melted versions of the masks. The head, my favorite of the least, is the pumpkin mask. The jack-o'-lantern mask, where I still think that this could be something that they could release as a Billy Kupfer release. I would definitely be displaying that figure with like a head sculpt like this. I may not necessarily, when it comes to trick-or-treaters, actually opt to choose to display any of the figures with the melting masks. I think I would rather just have them displayed as trick-or-treaters. But I think definitely as a follow-up to this set, by all means, please release a little Buddy Kupfer TV, and again, like a couple of accessories and serpents and all the insects and stuff that would go along with it. So like each one of these all come included with sort of the melting masks. The effects, of course, if you look at the back of it, the silver shamrock badge that's on the back of each of the masks. Of course, this one has already started to melt. It's got one snake slithering out the front of its mouth. And if you did want to change them out, it's pretty easy to do. First of all, we want to show you guys, let's just grab the existing head. The defaulted head is fantastic. I don't know if you can actually see it or not because the eyes are so recessed back, but there's actually painted eyes and sculpted eyes on the inside of the head. It's just a little harder to see, of course. If we spin this around, all of them will still have, of course, the badge on the back of the head. Probably not a good idea to be watching the commercial while wearing the mask. But if you, say, for example, did want to pop the masks out, I'm just going to remove it from the ball joint. And again, it looks like they are using the same bodies that we got before with the Sam, obviously, in this case. The jack-o'-lantern being kind of the least interesting when it comes to the suit that he wears. It sort of is just wearing like a black onesie. In the movie, obviously, any kid is deciding to wear one of these masks. I was going to say a hockey mask, but any one of the silver shamrock masks, all the way to ballerinas. I don't know why a ballerina is walking around or skating around actually wearing one of the Halloween masks. You think if she was going to be a ballerina, she'd just be a ballerina. But anyways, that's what the head sculpt looks like if you wanted to change them out. For me, at least, I still prefer the defaulted head, but I like the options available, and certainly weight can be made as to why you would want to get a second set of these. As for the figure's body, all the bodies are going to be exactly the same to one another. They all seem to be using the same Sam body, so a slightly smaller build and body than what we got before with the 78 Myers and really all the other Michael Myers figures. They have Velcro closures on the back, so if you really wanted to, you could open them up. And just to open up this right now to show you what the bodies look like underneath. One thing obviously is a side effect by using black material is there's a little bit of staining, but you're never really going to be opening this up anyways. I'm only simply showing you this for the purpose of the review only, but I'm obviously going to be keeping this sealed the whole time. Yeah, maybe the jack-o'-lantern isn't the most exciting of bodies. I'm clearly chalking up more to the fact that the costume is very, very plain. But then down below, each one of them have very unique shoes. This one just happens to wear like red Converse, for example. They have left, obviously, the Converse symbol off, but you know right away looking at the footwear what exactly brand this is. And I think they've nicely sculpted the laces and colored in its soles, adding a little bit of discoloring and dirt and grime that would have settled on the soles. Articulation-wise, and all the figures are going to be exactly the same. So, of course, you got the ball joint in the head. I just want to make sure, of course, I've got the head all the way on there. The head does have a dumbbell, so essentially there's a ball joint here, the ball joint right there. And between the two, you can move the head back and forth quite freely. Again, like the arms do come out. 90 degrees, no issues whatsoever moving those back and forth. A swivel in the bicep. All the same articulation we looked at before for the Sam. You got the hinge in the elbow. Hands rotate all the way around. And then the upper torso is on ball joint with a swivel in the waist. Legs split out. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh. It seems to be a double hinge on the knee, again, by feeling where the joint is. There seems to be a joint right there, or the hinge of the joint right there, and there's a secondary one right there. So there's a hinge joint there, and then, of course, when it comes to the feet themselves not only swivel back and forth, but you can also move them up and down. There's also an ankle pivot there, too. I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time looking at the articulation for each and every one of the figures, simply just because it's going to be a carbon copy again and again. On to now then the skeleton. The skeleton has a little bit more looser of a body, at least costume-wise, than we got for the jack-o'-lantern. Of course, this one does have the printing here on the front, very reminiscent of the Karate Kid, which, of course, I guess Halloween's Season of the Witch came before. No, did it? Around the same time. I think it came out just a little bit before. But it does have the printing, of course, on the skeleton on the front. That I will say, like, the printing is handled quite well here. I mean, it doesn't look like it's cracking. Some of the problems when you print over top of material is, like, if you print the image over top, sometimes sometimes it's prone to cracking. And obviously, for the short amount of time that I've had this, I haven't had any real issues. It's obviously only printed from the front, nothing printed on the back, but still have the Velcro closure if you did want to open and close this. The defaulted mask for the skeleton does have the slice on the back where actually be able to put the mask on. That's still familiar as the shamrock, say the silver shamrock badge. That's also on there on the back. I don't know if you can actually see it. It does actually say silver shamrock. That's a pretty small detail. But like the skeleton mask looks good. And of course, depending on what part in the movie you see some children running around wearing these masks, they don't always necessarily are wearing these outfits. I mean, it ranges from what they're actually wearing. And still, they all seem to like silver shamrock mask. But then they decide later on, like costume-wise, to be something completely different. The mask itself actually does have enough of a space down below when it comes to articulating the figure's head. No real restrictions at all. I mean, you can very easily move the head up, down, and again, back and forth. Now, again, if you like this head sculpt, stick with it. If, though, you wanted to change out to a more degrading-looking skeleton mask, then there's this option also available as well. They have also darkened the color, adding a wash of yellow. So it's not just a case of, hey, let's add a few little serpents and snakes slithering out. They've actually discolored the mask differently. And again, this one does have the silver shamrock badge there on the back. I do really like the fact that this one does have the worms slithering out from the eye, and it sort of is crawling in between the teeth. Such a cool, gruesome looking effect. Now again, if you want, just change the heads out, just pop the head off the ball joint, and then just replace it then with the new head sculpt. If you're having any tough time, by the way, popping the new heads in place, I find I had to do this, not with this one, but I did do this with the Sam. Just sort of heat the inside of it with a hairdryer. Just take a few passes. That's all you really have to do to soften up the plastic, just enough that it sits properly onto the ball joint. And that's what the skeleton looks like with the decaying mask. That looks fantastic. Gruesome and fantastic. And just before we actually get down to looking at the witch, the shoes, again, the soles are completely different from that of the jack-o'-lantern. This one's actually got kind of more of a grayish, a dark gray Converse with more yellowed soles. These ones actually look a little bit older than the kid that's wearing the jack-o'-lantern mask. But again, all the same articulation on the skeleton, so we're not going to spend a lot of time looking at the articulation on this guy. Instead, rather, what we'll do is then we'll move on to the witch. Now, the witch is rather interesting. I like the look of the witch. First of all, the witch has a little bit more stuff going on when it comes to the costuming. First of all, it does have a cape. The cape and really all the materials that they have used differ from one to the other. The skeleton and the witch seem to have the kind of closest kind of material, sort of like this nylon, whereas actually this one, the jack-o'-lantern, has very, very distinctly a different type of material that they used altogether. I do like the look of the witch. One thing that's also missing from this set is the witch's hat. Now, most of the time when we see the montage, the witch is actually wearing the hood. But there are a few instances, in fact, where we actually see like the jack-o'-lantern wearing the witch's hat, but this isn't actually included with the set. So you get sort of like a velour material that they would have used for the hood. Now, I find when it comes to actually putting this, first of all, you can easily slide this off. The badge isn't actually on the mask. It's instead rather on the hood. Now, I would think, wouldn't that be a buffer to prevent that from actually affecting any kid that's wearing the witch's mask? I'm trying to dissect this, whether this would be a realistic application, that whether, again, if it's on the hood itself, would that still affect? Of course it would. Of course it would. It would still shoot through all the material. But the only thing that you will want to be careful of, whereas all the other ones would have been sculpted right to the plastic and painted that way, this badge is actually attached to the hood. So being that it's glued in place, you want to be careful that, of course, this just doesn't get pulled off by accident, especially if you're removing and changing out the faces. The material, again, like they've used for the hood, is really well done. Stitched quite good, too, as well. And when you are putting on, say, this witch's head, or you want to use the other one that we will be putting on in a second, I find it actually helps to first slide this over top of the witch's face, and then sort of use the chin to kind of help hold it in place. You don't get the chance as much to see what's the features on the face of the witch. Let's just bring back the hood just a little bit so you guys can actually see. Yeah, it's definitely more of a gruesome hag-like witch. Really nice sculpting, again, on Trick or Treat Studios' part. You got nice dark coloring. Also, not only just the green, but they've added some nice additional gold and browns added in there as well. You can really more see the eyes on the witch than you could, say, with the jack-o'-lantern and the skeleton. If, though, you did want to change out the face, this one actually changes quite a lot. Not only in the, well, obviously in the sculpting. This one doesn't have anything necessarily crawling out of the orifices, but at least it does have a different colored face, like a different colored paint. They've actually gone more of a matte finish, unlike the more shinier mask that we got here with the straight witch default out of the packaging. I kind of like this one, though. Not the one I'm going to be necessarily displaying with the figure, but I really like that this one is very different than this one here. And again, just to change out the heads, now, it might be even beneficial, first of all, to take the hood off first. And then we're going to go ahead and just remove, again, the witch, just detached all together from the ball joint, and then pop now the replacement in. I find sometimes it also helps just to put your finger on the top of it to help kind of guide it back onto the ball joint. And then from there, of course, you're going to then take the hood and put it. Now, you don't have to really necessarily put the hood on, but it does sort of seem out of place not to have something on top of the witch's head. And then, again, we're just going to take the hood, slide it over top of her existing head. And again, I just find it helps to kind of easily just fit it underneath the chin, which I don't actually have the head completely all the way on there. Again, if you're having any tough time, just heat the plastic just a little bit. The thing you really want to hear is a bit of that. I don't want to say snap, but you want to kind of hear the part where it actually clicks onto the ball joint. And then from there, where's her chin? Where's her chin? Let's just bring her head up just a little bit here because we want to tuck the hood underneath the chin. And that's what it looks like. I mean, again, it's a really nice, not my favorite. Witch has never really been my favorite. Whenever I think of the Witch, I always think of like the original promotional trailer for Halloween 3. It's sort of got those eyes that just open up. But like, I really like the look of the Witch, though. I mean, there's a lot more going for the Witch than maybe isn't the case with the skeleton and the jack-o'-lantern. The cape does certainly add quite a lot. Also has a matching color of a belt that matches pretty close to the color. I mean, this is kind of more of an orange color. This is kind of a little more of a goldish yellow color. But I really like this one has extra layers. Now, this one also, if you just lift this up, does have pants underneath too. And this one, unlike the other two that would have had the red and the darker gray, this one actually has kind of more of a beige pair of Converse shoes. And again, all the articulation is going to be exactly the same on all these figures. So I'm really not going to spend a lot of time talking about it here again for the Witch. All in all, it's a good looking set. The only thing about this set is being the fact that you get all three of them instead of just one sold individually, is that while they included, meltable faces, which I think is one great thing I'm glad to see that they included, because they did include those extra masks and the extra hands, it did seem like they had to sacrifice something else in the way of accessories. So like this set's not going to come include with anything else than what you saw in this review. Doesn't come include with treat bags, doesn't include with treats inside. And again, like something I would love to see them maybe release later on is a buddy and a little TV set. Or at the very least, release the TV and release maybe some of the little side accessories that could have probably been released with the set initially. But being the fact that we do get ourselves 3 figures instead of just the one, it's definitely still a set you want to pick up, especially if you're a fan of Halloween 3's Season of the Witch. For this guy's personal collection, I'm going to be opting to display the trick-or-treaters with their defaulted masks, as simply if they're going to be going out trick-or-treating, they probably have yet experienced the side effects of watching the commercial from Silver Shamrocks. However, though, one thing did come to my mind is if you got yourself a second set of these, or if you were able to find yourselves kid-size 6-scale bodies on the cheap, you probably could easily just dress them up in different outfits of that scale, of course, and then simply just dress them up in Silver Shamrock masks. Definitely mileage then could be made by getting a second set of these, or even just using the melting masks and display them with other 6-scale bodies. As a follow-up to that, though, I certainly would love to see, and I would imagine a tease probably has been made by the fact that they didn't include gripping hands with clearly nothing really to be gripping onto. I'm sure that Trick or Treat Studios, maybe not working with Silver Shamrock, does have, though, plans to release an accessory set that's maybe down the road, where we would get ourselves all the things I mentioned in this review, that like the TV, like trick-or-treating bags, maybe even part of the exhibit room, like the testing room A, where, of course, little tiny Buddy has to be the first person that sees the side effects of Silver Shamrock commercials. But I would love to see, I hope to see at some point, that Todd's Trick or Treat Studios does release a little Buddy cup fur along with the TV, and of course either include already the melting mask or just use the melting mask that we get along with this set. I definitely think there's a lot more room to grow than just the trick-or-treaters we got alone in this set. Speaking of this set, though, if you guys are interested and like to get your hands on this one, it is again $299.99, so it's about $300 over on Trick or Treat Studios website. If that does seem high, though, you can also go the route of also installment plans. And they're, I think, ranging around $27 a month until eventually you get the set paid off and they get delivered right to your doorstep. A big thank you once again to the folks over at Trick or Treat Studios that did provide the sample of the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch 1/6 scale Trick or Treater action figure sets. As a side note, though, I know you only really saw at the beginning of this review, but I do also want to give them mad props for putting out a really elaborate display-based box. You may not have been able to really see that much of the box at the beginning of the review, but part of the TV actually does open up, or at least flips out, and you see the figures inside. But if you take the knob side of the TV and open up that flap separately, is where you see all the additional accessories like the hands and the melting mask. So again, want to give them points for the way they package these figures. Is this a set you could see yourselves picking up, or is this a set you already have in your collection? Let me know down below in the comments section. Also as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit it with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you want to stick around for more Trick or Treat Studio reviews, more will be coming your way. But make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and you're turning on the bell notification. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.